Live, sending out the tweet, and let's do this thing. Broadcasting live. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's do the countdown. I will go 9. Devindra will go 8. Here we go. 9.
8.
7.
6.
5.
4.
3.
2.
1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slash Filmcast. I am David Chen, and with me are
Devindra Hardawar.
And Jeff Kanata.
Welcome to the show, everyone. On this podcast today, we're going to do a weekly check-in, see how everyone's doing. We got a quick film news update before moving on to some what we've been watching. We have a new brief segment we're going to call Weekly Plugs, and then we're going to conclude with an in-depth review. This week we'll be talking about Relic, the new horror film that's available right now for rent on video on demand. You can find more episodes of this podcast at slashfilmcast.com. Email us at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. So a couple updates from last week. First of all, Jeff Kanata, you had a birthday, did you not?
I did have a birthday on Saturday. I
Happy,
did. August
happy
1st.
birthday.
Thank you.
Happy
Thank
birthday.
you.
Your first pandemic birthday.
Everybody remembers their first pandemic birthday.
What was it like, Jeff? What was it like having a birthday like during the pandemic?
Well, it was. I can imagine a lot of people listening have had birthdays during this 4 or 5 month period that we're all living through. So I don't think it's a unique situation, but it certainly is.
Maybe like 40 to 50% of people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if that's true. I don't think birthdays are evenly skewed throughout the year, but
No,
that's a statistics question.
I think that's how they are. I think that's how it works.
Do you
Also,
really?
No, I'm just. Also, I got my percentages wrong. But anyway, Jeff.
Whatever the case,
Whatever
I
the
had
case.
one, and it was strange. Admittedly, that you can't really do anything. I mean, I'm at an age where you don't really do much on your birthday anyway. But it was
Sure.
nice. It was nice. My wife's parents offered to take my children for the night, both of them. So we actually had an evening without any children at all, and we were able to go to get takeout at a place that we really, really like that we never get a chance to go to because it's really far. You know, we do these check-ins and, we do these check-ins and you say, Jeff, how's Los Angeles? And I
Yeah.
speak as a representative of Los Angeles. But the truth is, I don't really live in Los Angeles. I live in Los Angeles County, but I live in the San Fernando Valley. I live north of what everyone would consider to be the main part of Los Angeles, north of Hollywood, north of downtown Los Angeles. So I live on the outskirts. Los Angeles is a big, sprawling metropolis that is hard to pin down as any. There's not one place
Right.
that is Los Angeles.
Are
but I
you
certainly,
like Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Jeff?
yes, I'm even farther actually than Brad Pitt. I'm in Woodland Hills, so I'm a ways away. But I still feel like I'm in Los Angeles, especially when there's no pandemic time. I'm constantly in Hollywood. I'm constantly driving all around. I go to downtown. You're constantly in LA. You're just constantly, I was working places. I'm going all the time. But since this has started, the last several months, I've been in Woodland Hills. I've been in my house. I've been in a 2-mile radius of my house. I would go on runs. I would go on bike rides with my kid. I would make short jaunts to the nearest Ralph's grocery store and Trader Joe's, but that was the extent of it. And I didn't even realize how disconnected I was from LA, really, LA. Then on my birthday, when we finally, because the kids were gone and my wife and I were like, let's go to our favorite ramen place. In fact, I was inspired by Tanpopo because ever since watching that movie for review on the show, I've been craving really good ramen. And sadly, in Woodland Hills, I have not found decent ramen anywhere near here. But there's a place on Melrose that I really love in LA. That is my favorite ramen that I've ever had. And so we don't really get there very often, especially with kids now. So it was an opportunity to go get takeout ramen from there. There's a really amazing cake place there. We also got slices of this incredible cake that was nearby there. Anyway, so it was an occasion to drive down to Melrose which was, ground zero for a lot of the protesting and rioting that happened a while back. And I just haven't been there in many, many months. And I gotta say, guys, it was surreal.
Oh yeah, I can
Surreal.
imagine.
Driving, first of all, no traffic. We got there in like 10 minutes. It was insane. It was insane to drive down La Brea and Hollywood Boulevard and Melrose Avenue without traffic, like just breezing your way through those places. Unbelievable. I've never, ever in my life have I experienced that. And that was strange. And the number of businesses that are boarded up or for lease, places that are for lease that are just, it's like a ghost town down there. It is creepy, and you really do feel like, oh, this is that thing in the movies when there's an apocalypse and you drive through this is Will Smith playing golf on the battleship with his dog walking down Main Street in the middle of the day.
Let me tell you, Jeff, like a week before I left New York, I had to take the subway in to go to my office, and terrifying. It is a terrifying experience to go through a city that is full of life, that is instead like completely vacant of people and all boarded up. And it was so weird. I have to ask you though, Jeff, what did you do with the ramen? Did you bring it home? Or did you guys eat it right
eat it
there?
in the car?
Because takeout ramen is rough.
Takeout ramen is rough. I tell you, it was still glorious. But we took it home. We drove all the way back home. But again, got home very fast.
Okay.
But we took it home and put it in our own bowls and then ate outside in the backyard.
Oh,
in
nice.
the nice weather.
Nice touch to put it in the own bowls. Because they give it to you in the plastic bowls usually.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't feel right to eat it in the plastic bowls.
That old dude at the beginning of Tampopo would have smacked me in the back of the head if
Correct.
I had done that.
I'm so glad you internalized this, Jeffrey. That's very heartwarming.
That's the entire point of Tampopo. Yes.
I tapped the meat and I communed with it. You always want to tap your meat before you do anything. That's what I've found.
Yep. That's a good lesson for life. Tap that meat. Anyway, Jeff, I'm so glad to hear that you were able to find some joy in the current situation. So hope you had a happy birthday.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
Thanks for sharing that with us. But glad you're doing okay.
Yeah, hang in there, man.
Oh, so on last week's episode of the Slash Filmcast, which by the way I think is rapidly becoming just Jeff's descent into madness, and to a lesser extent our own.
I just you asked.
So I asked.
Share.
Oh, do you hear me blaming you, Jeff? I'm just explaining what's happening. Okay. So last week's episode of the podcast, Jeff, you described a issue that you were having in which mice or a rat was in your house. I mean, first of all, I gotta ask,
it was mice. I think it was mice. Yeah.
Any update on the mice situation?
Yes, a wonderful development. I believe we have. It's been several nights now with no mice droppings, no mice damage. I think we have successfully figured out how they were entering the house and have successfully blocked that entrance.
Nice.
And we had dudes out to the house with that foam stuff that I'm sure you guys have seen, that like crazy foam stuff they spray into holes and it hardens. Ugly as hell, super ugly. But now it's all around the sides of my house and like behind the dishwasher and underneath the stove. And so I think we boarded up, we blocked things for a while and the mice weren't coming, and we figured like, well, that's a good sign. And then so we, have foamed all those orifices. After you tap your meat, you want to foam your orifices. That's the takeaway this week, I think.
And then you want to pass the yolk from mouth to mouth, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway,
we're not gonna talk about that part.
The three lessons of the Slash Filmcast this week.
Yeah, so it's in our show notes every week. It's good news. It's good news. I can't say that the problem has been eliminated, but certainly the symptoms of the problem that were most traumatic and disruptive to our lives have been curtailed. So that is already a win,
Great.
I'm so glad to hear that. I have a little bit of an update this week, which is that I am forming a COVID bubble with someone, and more details about this will be released in the future.
You guys will formally announce.
We'll formally announce our bubble later, but yeah, I'm forming a
your
COVID bubble.
Publicist will be revealing pictures of the bubble.
Yep. We are gonna kind of be very specific about which outlet we're gonna choose to unveil the bubble.
Oh,
you know
of
what I'm
course. Why wouldn't you? Yeah, people and us have both been asking, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's going to be in the New York Times bubble section. It's a really high profile. Really high
New York
profile.
Times should have a bubble section these days.
So essentially, what happened is the space across the alley from our house. Devendra, you've been to my house before, I think, right? Yeah. So you know, basically, we're surrounded on either side by a bunch of townhouses, right? Mm-hmm. It's literally like 10 feet away is like how far away, like door to door, 10 feet. And one of those townhouses became available for rent. And I there's a couple people I knew who were potentially looking for a place to live. And so I pitched it to a couple people as like, hey, here's an idea. Like, maybe we could bubble up. And lo and behold, one of my friends accepted that offer. So we're going to be...
This is madness, by the way. But go on, Dave.
But yeah,
you put an ad out for Bubble Friends?
I didn't put an ad.
But also, you have to live right next door to me. So this all better go well.
Yep. No, for sure. It's definitely a risk. But yeah, this is a friend who like had, you know, per our conversation about bubbles, you know, that are very enlightening conversation in which I compared it to being a YouTube collaboration. This friend is
the idea of your ad. Me, a very germ conscious film lover.
Wait, when you say my
looking
ad
for conversation, you willing to share your bubble with me and only me. Interested? Call immediately.
Dave, you're recreating the influencer house thing that is happening in LA. So congrats.
Kind of.
You really are doing the YouTube thing.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to make a YouTube channel, but yes. So one of my friends, and it wasn't like I wrote an ad, Jeff. Okay, stop being such a silly goose, Jeff. So we're gonna bubble up, and it's gonna be cool because we're good friends, and it's just gonna be like, here's what I think. You know, David Brooks wrote this article not too long ago in The Atlantic about the nuclear family, and the article is basically about how the nuclear family is a historical accident. Basically, like, there's a 50-year time period in human history when the nuclear family was a big deal. And for hundreds and thousands of years before that, it wasn't a big deal. Like, it was, you'd live with extended family, or you'd live with like a commune of people, basically. You'd be in a hunter-gatherer society, you know, like whatever. And then for about like 50 years, the nuclear family was a big deal. Right, anyway, right. I think that in his article is basically like, this is pre-COVID. He was like, we should reconceptualize what we think of as the family, because like our current society is not built for nuclear families.
You mean actually go back to the way things used to be before everybody cloistered off into the suburbs, basically, in their own single-family homes? Like, it's pretty much that. Yeah.
I think it's more just like be willing to open your mind to like what the possibility of a family can be.
Sure.
You know,
you're saying family that isn't defined by blood.
Yes, absolutely correct. You know, watch Shoplifters.
Family used to mean multiple generations in the same home.
Right. Yes. Right. Exactly.
And
exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that like with the new COVID thing, you know, I don't want to get too philosophical about it, but even though that's exactly what I'm doing, but I think that
you literally have decided these people are your family.
Yeah, I mean, at least
we're family now. Come over to my house for special occasions.
Just pop in. Just pop in now. Like Dave, pop in rule. It's great.
Dave is the single white female antagonist. He doesn't even know it. The other people are like, yeah, we decided we would hang out with these folks that live nearby us once, and now they're calling us their family, and they're expecting us to be over every night. It's very disconcerting.
Well, you know, Jeff, I'm fine with you making fun of me because we've been friends for a long time, and also it was your birthday recently. But I happen to think that, you know, I'm like, I'm pretty serious about this. I mean, I think that like
Clearly.
you were talking
No,
about like
this starts as let's all hang out and be in a germ bubble, and it ends up with Dave's wearing your face as a mask.
All right, Jeff. Well, thanks for those positive thoughts on what's happening over in Seattle for me.
Sorry. No, go ahead. No,
No, it's okay. It's okay. We can move on. We can move on.
No, I'm genuinely want to hear this. I want to hear this. You have you had the first time where you guys have come over and swapped germs yet?
No. It's
invite them in. Would you like to breathe my recycled air? Welcome.
All right, guys, we're gonna move on.
I
understand. I understand. Fun. No, now I understand who is receptive to this idea.
I like it. I'm just being silly. Come on. I'm being a silly goose.
I'm completely receptive. I just think like, yeah, you are. This is a dangerous rope you're walking, Dave, because not only could the bubble fall apart for any reason, but now you live next door to them and you can't escape them. So good luck.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
No, for sure.
I told you we did this exact thing.
You literally did this thing that you're ridiculing me for. So I don't understand why it's such a big deal. But
because I tease because I love.
Anyway.
Don't move on. I want to hear more about why I interrupted you so many times.
It's cool. It's cool. No. Let's move on. Let's move on.
Has there been any skin to skin yet?
you keep saying you want to move on, and then you just drop another joke in there, Jeff.
Just asking.
All right.
If you want, how much?
Jake,
like, is it just hanging out? Are you just hanging? You just gonna hang out and watch the movies, or what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Dinners?
Jake W writes into /filmcast@gmail.com. Jake W writes in /filmcast@gmail.com. Weird that this is the first thing that gets me to write into the show, but Jeff does not need to own a cat. He can borrow one, maybe from a friend or my local pet shelter. My local pet shelter lets you foster a cat for a while. Hope your mouse problem goes away soon. Now, Jeff, we forwarded you this email about the idea of borrowing a cat, which seemed to me pretty logical. Like, it doesn't seem like a completely wild idea.
It's a win-win.
But you didn't seem super receptive to it.
I got this from a number of people that made this suggestion, which, forgive me, I think it is a well-intentioned and good-hearted suggestion made in good faith from a lot of people, much like Dave's last conversation. And yet I had a similar response in that I find it to be insane. It's an insane idea to me that I would somehow borrow a cat for a while. Like, I'm going to bring a cat into a home with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I'm expecting to have that be a temporary thing and not completely.
I wonder. Well, yeah, that is certainly dangerous. I wonder though, Jeff. Do you know how big cats are? Like, I wonder if you've seen a cat before, because you're
maybe
acting like
Jeff's whole
bringing a 50-pound dog into this house. Yeah.
Jeff's whole conception of cats come from the Beethoven movies, basically.
My conception of everything comes from the Beethoven movies.
The Beethoven movies are canonical in Jeff's mind. Yes.
Canonical, yeah. No, I'm not worried about them like injuring my kids. I'm worried about my kids falling in love with them then saying no, they only here for a short time. Sorry, and then my kids being,
they have to learn loss sometime, Jeff. Okay.
Yeah, I guess.
But then couldn't you then get them a cat though if they really enjoyed it?
I don't want to have the whole point of this story is that there's animals in my house that I don't want.
Let me tell you, Jeff. The nice thing about having cats and kids is that the kids will just play with the cats. Like, it is like free distraction time for them to just like hang out and play together. So that's offloading parent time. That means you can check Twitter. You can check Twitter for 5 minutes at a time.
Some sort of cat babysitter is what I'm getting at now?
Completely.
Well, that is tempting, I have to admit. But I'm reminded of a story I told my children a number of times. Maybe you guys have heard of it. Was it the how does it go? I got a fly to catch the fly. I got a frog to catch the frog. I got like that.
It doesn't work because it's just a cat.
It's madness. The whole point is that I don't want animals in my house. And people are like, what the solution to having animals in your house are? Get other animals in your house. And like, I don't want that. I don't want animals in my house.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we tried. But I'm glad that your rodent problem has since resolved itself.
Well, I don't know that for sure, but it's an uptick in sanity, that's for sure.
Before we get to what we've been watching, one other thing I wanted to mention, we've discussed this issue before on the Slash Filmcast before, but we learned this week that Netflix is now letting people watch things faster or slower with new playback speed controls. You can stream up to 0.5 times slower or 1.5 times faster. Now,
only on Android right now.
Only on Android, right? So you can't. I couldn't do it on like my Apple TV or anything like that.
Nope. And they said they are working on testing iOS and web, but still no like TV interface.
Now, I was originally very resistant to this. We've obviously had like many chats about the morality, the ethic, whatever you want to call it, of speeding up, slowing down podcasts. I mean, I do
like to point out, I don't think we've ever come out against slowing down.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Well,
no,
in any case,
slowing down is a different issue, right? Slowing down is a different issue, in my opinion.
Because it's like an accessibility thing, in your opinion?
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think anybody's slowing down a podcast for any other reason than they have a need to slow it down.
I mean, I have a terrible confession to make, guys. Okay, which is not that I don't listen to podcasts sped up, but I have started using the remove silence feature on my podcast player.
But that feels different, I guess. That could remove like, useful pauses, but I do that as well because it compresses things, but you still get, everybody's tone. Everything still sounds the same, basically.
I just want to I want to describe my emotional reaction to this news about the Netflix thing. Is I started being like, well, really sad, disposable entertainment culture we live in. People can just speed it up and charge through it no matter what. Jeff, we just had that whole talk a couple weeks ago on the podcast about how, people spend years working on these movies and TV shows, and we just cram it all down like we're speed eating something,
Yes.
And this is yet another sign of how entertainment is becoming more and more disposable. But then I read this article at TheVerge.com, which describes the news, and I think this is very much worth keeping in mind. Here, the article notes, quote, both the National Association of the Deaf and the National Federation of the Blind commended Netflix on adding the playback features. Since captions are slowed down and also sped up to keep in time with the images on screen, it can help deaf people who might prefer the captions at a slightly slower speed, according to Howard A. Rosenblum, CEO of the National Association of the Deaf. On the other side, many people in the blind community can understand and appreciate audio played at a much faster pace than what might be comfortable for most sighted people, said Everett Bacon, a board member on the National Federation of the Blind. End quote. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. It's like, hey, you can think of it primarily as an accessibility feature, I think. And accessibility features can often have benefits for able-bodied people. Like I think closed captioning is a great example of an accessibility feature that like I use all the time, so I don't need to crank up my volume. So while I'm not saying that the Netflix thing is not a sign of the culture's inexorable slide towards thinking of entertainment
I'm sure that's why Netflix did it. That's sure they were like, let's think about the blind community that can hear things better and faster. I don't think that's what happened, but
I'm sure that was part. I'm sure that was part of it. But yeah, I think you're right that like maybe it allows there's people who want to burn through this stuff faster and they want to help facilitate it. But again, I think
we've talked about this before. By the way, like these buttons. Have you forgotten what was on your VHS player and what was on your DVD player? They had slowdown options, they had speed up options. Like there were similar things.
Yeah, but I don't recall it replicating the sound or like keeping the sound at the same pitch, for instance, which is something that this does. So I basically I'm saying I went from this being a very sad thing about our culture to actually maybe it's kind of a happy thing for our culture. So good on Netflix for adding that feature, and I think people of a wide variety of abilities will benefit from it. So
right, like my feelings on these things really comes down to: is it affecting me? Is it this new feature? Is it going to make my life actually worse? No, it's not. It's just people who prefer to do these things. I wouldn't do this to a movie probably, but some people may. I think the funny thing is it is probably the perfect way to watch a Netflix TV show. Think about it. Like half of those shows are just treading water and wasting time. So what better way to binge on the next season of Umbrella Academy is to just burn through the slow parts, right?
I do think there is an implication. You know, filmmakers have expressed concern about this feature. Like,
Right.
filmmakers make things to be watched and listened to in a specific way with a specific pacing, and this will disrupt that.
Editor who is agonizing over every frame.
Yep.
To find out what the perfect pause is before you hear the next line to make it land in a specific way. And all due respect to this organization for the blind, listen, like I said, I have no problem with people that need something slowed down or that need the captions to go slower or whatever. Any of that, obviously, I think we should do as much accessibility stuff as possible. I have a hard time believing that simply because you're blind and you're capable of listening to it faster, it somehow is an accessibility issue to let you just consume it faster. Like I would think if I was blind, if and God knows I'm getting there closer every day, the idea of not listening to it at the pace that the filmmaker wanted to, I don't think that would be something that I would want. I don't know. It just feels like the speeding up is the issue for me, and I understand and I respect the accessibility side of it, and I think it's wonderful that you can slow things down, you can make things clearer for people that may have a harder time reading captions fast or whatever the case. Slowing down is not my issue. It's the get it in faster, go faster, speed up, break the rhythm that was established by the creator. I don't think there's any real reason that's better.
Well, let us know what you out there think, listeners. /filmcast@gmail.com, where you can write in, will you be using this feature? If so, why? We'd be interested in hearing from you. But it is a feature that's going to be out there, and it will probably be rolling out wider in the days to come. Let's move on to what we've been watching this week. This week, I had a chance to watch a movie called Speed Cubers. Jeff Kanata, sounds like you watched this movie as well.
I did. I bawled my way through it. I was like ugly crying through Speed Cubers.
Why? So how did you? Because I tweeted and I made a video about it. But how did you hear about it? Did you see it on Netflix pop up on your home screen or like? What?
I did. I think I got a tweet from someone else saying you got to watch this.
Yeah.
I actually went. I used a lot of recommendations this week from people I didn't even know to determine what I watched this week. And this is the kind of thing that I'm already fascinated by. We've talked many times on the show about, there's like subgroups of subgroups, like niches of a niche, a real very specific category of community that's super passionate about a very obscure thing. I love that. I love looking at these communities of people who like dedicate their lives to some skill that is such a tiny margin of humans even pay attention to it, but they are obsessed. And I love that. This is, of course, about people that solve Rubik's Cube puzzles as fast as possible, mostly young people, and the competition that arises out of it. And I love the fact that even when we get to the biggest competition, the world championships, there's like 30 people in the audience. This is a niche, right? And I love that. I love anything that takes a look at those subgroups and those cultures that are built up around the tiniest little focus of a hobby. But really what this documentary is, which is, by the way, very short. I think it's less than 50 minutes. It's a story about these two boys, these friends that are, it's an extraordinary, heartwarming, life-affirming tale about just being a good person. Being a really good person. And I was ugly crying through it, like throughout, just bawling my head off. And I really recommend it to anybody because it will make you want to be a better person. It's just about parents who have to deal with a child with autism and coming to that child rather than asking that child to come to them, metaphorically speaking. Finding a way into that child's inner life and connecting with that child in a way they didn't think was possible. my daughter has brain damage, and it really affected me. This beautiful tale of these parents finding a way in, and then this boy, this champion speed cuber who has all the records, and then along comes this other kid who breaks all his records, and they yet, despite that, can be friends. You can treat him with respect and dignity and love, and I just found it to be an extraordinary tale that made me want to be a better person. So I highly recommend Speed Cubers.
It's great. It's like a 40-minute long documentary. It lands what it's trying to land. It gets out. If anything, this is one of those movies I thought it was a little too short. I'm like, I want to know more about this world of speed cubing, And there's people who solve Rubik's cubes with their feet, and they solve.
We don't even see them in the documentary.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, I want to see more of the feet people. There's like 4x4, 5x5 cubes that are, much more difficult than the 3x3s, and I'm like, I want to learn more about that. So it really introduced me to this world in a way that made me want to learn more, which I think is the mark of a great documentary.
It's kind of like almost only tangentially about speed cubing, right? Speed cubing is the excuse to talk about these two people, really.
I think that's right. A great analogy someone on Letterboxd said, I'm sorry, I don't know exactly who, but I think someone on Letterboxd said, this is like watching King of Kong, but everyone in the movie's nice. It's like kind of a sports rivalry, but imagine if the two people who are rivals loved each other, It's like, oh, that's so heartwarming. And it made me cry. It's really great. I would really recommend you check it out, even if you're not into speed cubing, which the vast majority of people I know aren't. You should still watch this movie. It's actually called The Speed Cubers, I believe. So The Speed Cubers.
They stole the from Floor's Lava and used it here, which is really nice of them to do.
Yeah.
Especially in this era we're living in, this sort of the Trump doctrine that says, you either win and insult everyone else along the way, or you're nothing, right? Winning is everything. Where I was raised, and I'm trying to raise my kids with that old adage that says it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game, right? We've completely abandoned that as a American culture. This whole like how you play the game is important because people are just like, no, cheat, screw your buddy, do whatever you need to do as long as you win. It's become that, just win baby mentality in this country. And here is this view of a very small insular community where the top two people in the world at it go, no, we want to win. We're trying to win, but it's also how we do it. It's also being decent, being good to each other, and coming at it with love and gratitude. It's a lesson out of this highly unlikely little universe. It's a lesson that can be applied, I think, to everything we do.
The movie is The Speed Cubers. Check it out on Netflix. I had a chance to watch a movie on Netflix called Tread. It's Friday night. Open up Netflix, and this movie gets served to me. It's there's a description. It's called, "This documentary reconstructs the pivotal moments that drove a man on a rampage to destroy a small town with a bulldozer he fortified in secret."
Oh, this is the bulldozer guy movie.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, this movie.
I have been meaning to see this.
I'm like, man, Netflix really gets me that it served this one straight up to me.
Wouldn't it be great if like there was just like a visual representation of the algorithm and just like winked at you and it's like, thanks, buddy, you got it, Netflix.
This movie is directed by a man named Paul Solet, who I interviewed on the Slash Filmcast like many years ago. I want to say, this was like I interviewed this guy 11 years ago. He had made a movie called Grace, which had premiered at Sundance, and it was very good. It was a really great low budget horror film. And he made this documentary in like 2019. It's called Tread. And this documentary is awesome. I just need to say it's very, very good. I had never heard of this story. Did you guys hear about this story? Like, did you hear about this when it happened?
I remember that, yeah.
This was being thrown all around social media. Like, it was a crazy story. Yeah.
So this was in 2004, a professional welder in Granby, Colorado, drove a fortified bulldozer through town. And it was an international news story for a day, and then I think Ronald Reagan died the day afterwards. And so
I remember
then
that it was like everybody was like, "It's falling down. It's falling down in real life. It's falling down. It's because falling down had come out before that, right? Yeah. I remember that.
And the movie is really compelling, and I think it's also like a pretty great allegory for the Trump era. I mean, I'm not going to go into detail, but suffice to say, this guy felt very, very aggrieved, and he was very disturbed, and he recorded all these tapes explaining why he was about to do what he did. And the movie uses those tapes to kind of reconstruct the events leading up to this fateful day. I mean, what he did is I want to say it's incredible, but that like it sounds like I'm praising him in some way. You know what I mean? But it is
a Breaking Bad level scenario, right?
Yeah, it
well,
is.
Thank God he went there instead of AR-15. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, there was you got to watch this movie, Jeff, because it's not quite that simple, right? Like there was I will say that it was a monumental task of engineering what he was able to accomplish, because he essentially designed a machine that no one could stop, and people tried like shooting at it and throwing grenades at it. You know, like they did everything they could to stop this thing. And anyway, so it is a fascinating documentary that kind of shows you how this guy got into, I would say, a vicious circle, kind of like a toxic cycle with the people around him. You guys know, and I think we've all been in this situation. Maybe we are in this situation with each other on the podcast right now.
Yeah.
But you know how some people, like, sometimes they get in a relationship with someone where it becomes toxic and like nothing can redeem it. Like things that
in that relationship now, Dave.
Things
I
that
said
are.
I was sorry, I didn't let you talk about your germ circle. I'm sorry.
Things that are meant to be kind gestures, basically, are interpreted in the worst possible way in bad faith, right? Like,
oh, that's called marriage.
but there's a situation where, like, no matter what the other person does, the relationship is irredeemable. The relationship is irredeemable. This guy basically had that kind of relationship with an entire town, and the
Wow.
movie examines, the upsetting consequences of that. So,
Oh boy.
it's fascinating, and I mean, I've already. People already know what happened, so I'm not going to give away anything. Like, I've already held back many of the details from the movie, and I will continue to hold them back. So I'm not going to say. But I'll just say that the way in which they were able to convey what occurred, right? I'm not going to reveal how they convey what occurred, but like obviously at some point they need to either reconstruct it themselves or they need to use archival footage to show what happened.
They rebuilt the machine, didn't they?
I'm not going to say what happens.
Amazing.
I'm not going to say what happens. You just have to watch the movie yourself, but I'll say the way in which they reconstructed the terrifying events were really, really effective, really, really well done.
I'm
So
hyped for
Stop
this movie.
motion claymation animation. That's my guess. This does not sound like the feel-good hit that the Speed Cubers was. To me.
no, I actually watched these movies back to back too. And
It's those two movies really, I think, encapsulates the emotions we're all feeling right now. We want the Speed Cubers, but we feel Tread.
yes, no,
So true.
that's so true, Devindra. That's so true. Okay, finally, I just want to give a quick shout out to this. So I have been hosting with relative frequency these watch parties online, and both Amazon and Netflix in the United States have features now where you can watch a movie or TV show along with other people and chat together about it in a chat room. And so oftentimes on my Twitter account at Dave Chensky, that's Dave SKY, I'll say, hey, I'm hosting an Amazon watch party, and I'll drop a link to the watch party, and a bunch of people will join, and we'll chat and have a good time, and that's happened a bunch of times. And I also actually created a free website, at jointhewatchparty.com. It's where I drop links whenever this happens. But I recently did one of these for it was late at night, and I think I was editing a podcast or something. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna throw something on in the background, and I'm gonna put something on that even if I need to stop watching it halfway through, it's not gonna be a problem. And so I chose Samsara, which is a movie by Ron Frick, and I don't know if you guys know Samsara, but it's basically the entire movie is just no dialogue. It's just a bunch of high-res shots of random
you put
things.
On a beautiful screensaver while you work.
It's from high-res shots from things around the world, basically. And I couldn't stop watching. I watched it all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Because it is so incredibly well done. Ron Frick, it basically has like extremely high-res cameras shooting scenes that like feel like they open up your conception of what planet Earth can be. Or what planet Earth is, I should say. So, Samsara is great. It's on Prime Video. Check it out. But I also got so into this. I was like, oh my gosh, that was such a compelling watching experience. I got the Blu-ray for Baraka, which is the predecessor movie for that, which is also really impressive. And I just wanted to talk about it briefly because, Devindra, I thought you'd appreciate this. Basically, Baraka was released on Blu-ray. It was off, and on the Blu-ray cover, it's like 8K remaster, right? And it's not an 8K Blu-ray or anything, but it's using the 8K remaster. And I read the Wikipedia description of how they were able to generate this 8K thing, and this is really fascinating. It says, following DVD releases in 2007, the original 65mm negative of Baraka was rescanned at 8K resolution with equipment designed specifically for Baraka at Photochem Laboratories. The automated 8K film scanner, operating continuously, took more than 3 weeks to finish scanning more than 150,000 frames, taking approximately 12 to 13 seconds to scan each frame, producing over 30 terabytes of image data in total. After a 16-month-long digital intermedia process, including a 96 kilohertz 24-bit audio remaster by Stearns for the DTS HD audio soundtrack of the film.
I like all these acronyms and numbers. It's great.
The result was re-released on DVD and Blu-ray disc in October of 2008. At the time, project supervisor Andrew Oron described the reissue of Baraka as arguably the highest quality DVD that has ever been made.
Yeah, you know, all that work, they're good for like decades of film formats. Like they could just like, oh, AK is here. Like we have, let's just drop Baraka. We got
just drop Baraka into the 8K. Yeah, and the Blu-ray does in fact look incredible. I do think that the movies are very similar. There are scenes that are even like in the same places in both movies. Baraka is definitely a more optimistic movie, though. Samsara kind of much more dark in its depiction of humanity, in my opinion. But I think they're both great, and if you're looking for something interesting to watch, that it doesn't have any plot, it's just a bunch of beautiful things to look at, things that are going to make you think, things that are going to make you appreciate your place in the world, I would check out both of these movies.
You know, now is probably a great time to rewatch these movies or watch them for the first time too, because we're trapped. We cannot reach out and travel and touch these things. Like this is why I love travel shows, and I'm doing a big travel show binge again because I'm stuck at home like everybody else. So yeah. Good call, Dave. I want to check these out again.
The movies are Samsara and Baraka. Check them out. Samsara is on Prime Video. Devindra Hardawar, what have you been watching this week?
Oh, I checked out Black is King, which is Beyonce's visual album, I guess. This thing is so weird and so beautiful. So, yeah, she is credited as directing this thing, along with some other visual artists. This is basically a short film based on The Gift, which was the sort of like the like album she released that was related to The Lion King. So sort of like, the other album that came out alongside the Black Panther soundtrack. I think that was just the Black Panther soundtrack. But it's this weird thing of her. It's a live action reinterpretation of the Lion King story. And using like little bits of dialogue here. Like there's some James Earl Jones stuff. There's like some iconic lines. But it's also going back into like religious iconography and things that are centered around Africa and African cultures and, ancient African religions. It is a very wild thing, but I think this is probably the most the Lion King, probably not the most like culturally respectable thing out there when it comes to Africa and so many things, and ripping off an idea from Japanese cartoon as well. I think this is probably one of the most like culturally interesting things to happen from the Lion King, and I think this also kind of describes like why the hell Beyonce was in the Lion King live action remake to begin with, right? Like she didn't need that. She was barely in the movie. But I wonder if like part of it was just her negotiating, like, okay, Disney, give like I'm gonna tell my Lion King. And that's basically what this is. So this is a beautiful series of videos and kind of like a broad sketch of a Lion King like story. But it's amazing. I don't know if you guys have heard The Gift. Like that was a really interesting album. Like it wasn't like a typical Beyonce thing because she brought in a whole bunch of other folks to make music that was sort of inspired by The Lion King. So I found that to be fascinating. This movie is just beautiful. Like this is Lemonade level quality going on here of her making a grand statement about African culture and its place in the world and the beauty of it. So I'd highly recommend everybody go check this out right now. It would actually, I think, fit alongside the whole Samsara and Baraka thing because it is a beautiful thing. Like it's a construction of beautiful images and things we've kind of never really seen before. So I would highly recommend this. And
Can I
to
ask
me, it's
how?
incredible that Beyonce's in there
How
doing
do you
this.
consume Black is King? Like, how do you actually view it?
It's on Disney Plus. It's
All
right
yeah,
there at the top of the page.
That's right. Disney
Yeah.
Plus. Yeah. Okay.
You launch and there's a huge banner at the top of the page. You just click that, you see the movie. It's great. Yeah, this thing is astounding. It looks amazing too. Like I think on any modern TV, this is going to be like, to me, this feels almost like a spiritual successor to the whole idea of Samsara and Baraka, except it's trying to tell an actual story in a very like roundabout way. I guess it's amazing. Go check it out. It's a beautiful thing. I'm so glad she had the power to just make this thing. Like this is myth making by Beyonce, right? This is her thinking of African stories and its place in the world, but also this is just her. Like this is Beyonce saying, "Hey, who else can do this right now? I'm the queen. Bow before me." So go watch Black is King.
Black is King is on Disney Plus. Jeff Kanata, other than Speed Cubers, what else have you been watching this week?
The Speed Cubers to you, Dave.
Oh yeah, good call. Good call.
Which again, everyone should watch.
Yep.
And it will make you a better person. I got a tweet this week. Actually, all three of us did. From Peter Miller. I don't know Peter, but Peter tweeted at us saying, if you're looking for a really good sit, just 56 minutes, I recommend I Pastafari, a great documentary. I took Peter up on that. I get one of the things that I find so frustrating about Twitter is that I will, from time to time, get recommendations from listeners and want to find myself wanting to watch something. And I will go, oh, yeah, I saw that in my Twitter feed. Somebody sent me a recommendation. And I'll never be able to find it. I just can't find it. It's just a terrible, terrible way to give me recommendations because the time I want to know about it, it's hard to find in my feed. I can't remember.
Have you considered using
context.
the bookmark or heart feature on Twitter?
I guess I should do that. There were times when I would like cut and paste or take screenshots or something. And then, that's even in the heat of the moment. You're like, ooh, that sounds interesting. But you're doing the rest of your Twitter feed. And I don't know. I'm bad at that.
You could also just
bad
heart or bookmark them. It's built into the thing.
But then I've hearted and bookmarked. And I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll try that. Anyway, the reason I'm saying this is there was this perfect storm of events that led the moment that I needed to watch something with that tweet coming in. So it was one of those things where I was like, okay, I'll watch this. I actually had to pony up money. I had to rent it. But I did. And thank you, Peter, because I Pastafari is a documentary I enjoyed. I don't think it's the Speed Cubers level, but it is. It was entertaining. The idea is there is a religion called Pastafari that clearly started as a parody.
Oh, yeah.
but many people have heard of this. This is the flying spaghetti monster.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Early 2000s, everybody heard about it. If you were on, AOL Instant Messenger, you heard about the flying pasta monster. Basically the idea that this is spaghetti monster. It's like, if you tell me there's an invisible man in the sky controlling all events, I tell you there's an invincible flying pasta monster in the sky controlling events. What's the difference? Well, this documentary examines people that have taken this to its logical conclusion, actually going to court to attempt to be recognized as an actual religion, wearing colanders on their heads as religious headgear, asking for their passport photos and driver's licenses to be taken with their religious headgear on, because there are exemptions for religious headgear for people who have that as part of their belief system. Because you're not able to wear headgear or a hat of any kind when you get those photos taken, to have it be used on an official government document. And to be fair, most of this movie takes place and examines stuff that is not in the United States. There is some United States stuff in this documentary, but most of it is examining Germany, the Netherlands, other places where people are using this religion as a way to challenge these exceptions to the norms. And I find it to be brilliant, insightful. There's an entire section of this film that kind of compares, it talks about what the standard for what a religion is and why we should respect religion, and why, having religious institutions be tax exempt, for example, is a good thing. And then it shows why that is absolutely not the case. And I love it. I'm not a fan of organized religion at all. And I find the Pastafari religion to be, in my opinion, objectively the best religion, because it is the only religion I know of that straight up says, don't be a douchebag. It says, hey, if there's anything you're considering doing in my name that's bad to anybody, don't do it. Literally, that's their doctrine, is don't blame it on me if you want to do something bad to somebody. And it's I find this to be insightful and like a scalpel to belief, right?
Jeff, are you a Pastafarian now?
I kind of want to be.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the fact that
I don't want to be hiding the hat right now. So
yeah. Well, it's just messing up my hair is the problem. I find the documentary to kind of outline the idea behind this in such a smart way, in the sense that it is not straight up saying, hey, these people are parodying all of religion. In fact, they explicitly say they are not. They explicitly say that is not our goal here. But it is that is a parody of the religion, right? That it is such a brilliant strategy to show how ridiculous it is to have this nonsense part of ingrained in our laws. Right. Like the idea that somebody can go, I have a religion now, and therefore I don't have to pay taxes. Somebody that can, these televangelists who are flying jets that they paid for with tax-free money that they scammed from people. It's pretty amazing. And then you have these people in court saying, well, Pastafarianism isn't that. And they go, okay, why? And they go, well, it's not serious and not this and not that. And it's like, I can show you a lot
of other recent religions. Yeah.
Yeah. I can show you a number of, there's nothing, there is nothing to differentiate it. When it comes right down to it, there is nothing to differentiate it.
Other than maybe time. Right. Other than
time.
Exactly. It's funny. What would happen with time, by the way, is because you can think of a lot of other religions that have started out with this idea of hey, just don't be a dick. That's what we are, right? Fast forward hundreds, of years.
Oh yeah.
Thousands of years. There's a war somehow. In 500 years.
500 years, Pastafarians are murdering people who aren't converting to Pastafari, I think is really where this is heading, Jeff.
Well, perhaps.
That's
but I
think humanity, Jeff. Come
on. If you saw their doctrine, it's pretty funny. It's basically it's basically saying straight up, don't do any of that. Are you mad at somebody worshiping a different god than me? Don't be. We're all nonsense. You know, like that's in the. It's pretty great. I happen to really love it, and I think the documentary does a great job of sort of laying all that out in a really cogent way. And I recommend I Pastafari. I watched it. Boy, I don't remember. I think it was on iTunes. It was like $6 to rent. I enjoyed it.
I'll check this out. Like, honestly, I was also meaning to watch Hail Satan recently too, because kind of covering similar territory.
Similar territory.
Yeah.
Hail Satan's available on Hulu, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But Jeff, I Pastafari is available to rent for $5, or you can buy for $8.
Right.
But that extra $3, you didn't want to roll the dice on that one, huh?
I don't. Why do I want to own things, Dave? I'm in a post-ownership world, baby.
I thought that only referred to physical things.
Yeah, but like, okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
you're not really owning it. You're just giving yourself the license to watch it.
Yeah, you're giving yourself
you
the license to watch it anytime you want. But
I just don't. There's always something else that needs to be watched.
It's actually really true. Yeah. I probably would roll my dice and do the purchase on this one though.
I do the purchases because I want to support the people.
Yeah, remember how you're killing cinema, Jeff? Remember how you're killing cinema?
This is your livelihood, Jeff. Come on.
I forgot that I'm single-handedly murdering cinema.
You're single-handedly murdering cinema by not giving this person more money.
Yeah.
So,
but do you remember how? Do you remember how everyone wants to watch things at double speed because there's too much to watch?
Sure.
Remember that?
I
do remember that.
Pay full price, watch at double speed. You know, the creator still gets the money. It's fine. Yeah.
The movie is I Pastafari, a flying spaghetti monster story. It's available on video on demand for purchase right now.
Great title.
All right, let's move on in the show. We want to thank people who donated to the podcast this week. Sharif from San Francisco writes in with his donation. Hello, /Filmcast. I've been listening to you guys since 2013, so this donation is shamefully long overdue. Between Jeff's limericks, David's boom goes the dynamite jokes, and Devindra's defense of Chappie, you guys feel like old friends who I can count on for honest and humorous discussion every week. With this, I was hoping you guys would give a shout out to my friend Ali, who introduced me to the show way back. Ali and I have bonded over movies back in college, and we still to this day continue our tradition of talking Oscar picks and bickering over our summer movie wager. He and his lovely wife Liz just had their first baby. I can only imagine how difficult it must be taking care of a baby in the middle of a pandemic in New York, but I know he has you guys to keep company and educate on all the new dad movies he needs to start paying attention to. You've definitely helped me stay sane during these past few months. Thank you for the endless entertainment, and keep up the good work.
Oh,
yay. Congratulations, Ali and wife. That's amazing.
Yeah. Lloyd Case writes in with his donation. A long-time listener, first-time donor. Tell Jeff to hang in there. If he doesn't want a cat, a miniature dachshund is hell on mice and rats.
Again, more animals is not the solution to less animals. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. You know, this.
Although I did grow up with a dachshund, and they are adorable.
This guy's mention of Chappie, by the way, reminds me. Have you guys heard of this this Hollywood auction for props that's happening in the next couple weeks?
Yes. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
There's a massive auction going on. It's called the Entertainment Memorabilia Live Auction in Los Angeles. Treasures from Film and Television. This auction's happening on August 26th and 27th. And if you Google it, you'll see the catalog online.
There is some incredible.
There is
stuff
incredible
What should we all go
stuff
in on together as a family? What should we do?
The replica, the scale model of the Nostromo, I believe, from Alien is up there.
Good.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
The reason I bring this up is because there is a full-size Chappie in this auction. It's lot 155, full-size Chappie, title character robot with replica head.
What is the cost? How much?
Okay, let me read the description.
Well, it's an auction, right? So you don't know.
A full-size Chappie, title character robot with replica head from Neil Blomkamp's dystopian sci-fi film Chappie. Damaged human-like law enforcement robot Chappie, played by Charlton Copley, fell into the hands of a group of gangsters. The film featured a number of Tetraval police scout robots, and title character Chappie had the unique designation number 22. He was designed and created by Weta Workshop for the film and features a huge number of designed components. End quote. Anyway, It
Guys,
goes into great
I
detail.
would love to own Chappie. I am not doing it.
Estimated cost of Chappie. Okay, so it gives you an estimate of how much it's gonna go for. What do you
Okay.
guys think is the estimated cost of Chappie?
$1,000.
$30,000.
Estimate between $10,000 and $15,000.
Okay, that's fair.
Devindra, you're an order of magnitude too low here, man.
A little bit, but I listen. I have a Chappie brand. I really have to keep it up, and
It's true.
I would love Chappie in the background of all my like video shots. It'd be amazing.
It's true.
That would be pretty cool background swag. Yeah.
There's a lot of good.
There's
stuff in
incredible
this
stuff here. I have to be honest. Like I have considered potentially putting in a bid for some of these things.
Yeah.
One of the objects that I was thinking of, but like it's a terrible idea and I should not do it. And don't assume I'm gonna do it. Okay, I'm just saying. Hey, I fantasize a little bit about doing this. Is the soap from Fight Club?
Oh my god.
So there is a film poster soap bar made for the promotion of David Fincher's Fight Club. And you guys know he holds a bar of soap that says Fight. It's like Fight Club is like etched into the soap itself, right? Estimated cost $2,000 to $3,000. I told my wife about this possible Fight Club soap I was going to maybe bid on, and she said, then she looked down at her phone, she punched some things in, and she showed me an eBay listing for a soap that looks almost identical that's $80. But then I kept trying to say, this is the one that was used in the poster, though. Anyway, just a pro tip for anyone out there: you can get Fight Club soap that says the words Fight Club on it for much less than $2,000 to $3,000.
It's funny. I was listening to This Week in Tech, which is a show that Devindra frequently guests on, and I have guested on several times as well. And they were talking this last week about there's an auction for the Fire Festival memorabilia as well.
Well, that's from I think the Justice Department is doing that, so that's not
exactly. Yeah, it's the government that seized it. They're auctioning off. You can get like the actual hat from the Fire Festival, and one of the people that was on, Brianna Wu, said her friend wants to buy the hat. It'd be like $500, and they were trying to convince her like you could make the hat at any like online print store, and it would be indistinguishable. So my question to you, and I think this is exactly the same thing you're talking about with Fight Club soap, is does the knowledge that it's the actual, even if it is indistinguishable, if it has been created in a perfect replica, just does the knowledge that it's the one from the thing mean enough to you that you would pay that much more?
The answer in general is yes. However, the problem with the Fight Club soap specifically is that it wasn't actually in the movie. You know what I mean? Like it was part of the marketing for the movie. So it's like, do I really care that much about the marketing for the movie? You know what I mean? And but the reason I gravitated towards the soap too, by the way, is that my current house is not built to display like Michael Corleone's suit from Godfather 2. You know what I'm saying? So like a soap is one of the only things I feel like I could put in a case and like, you know,
it needs a whole wall.
Itself. So, but anyway, the answer to your question, Jeff, is mostly yes. I would say.
Yeah, you will get a certificate of authenticity, and you could resell this thing like later
to
an even bigger Fight Club plan.
Yeah, there you go.
Is it because it's a piece of history that was in a moment that is historical and important to you, or is it because there's only one of them and you've got it?
I think it's more like. I think it's more like I really want to wash myself with this soap.
I feel you should not own this soap then.
You've never felt clean in your life, and you can finally feel clean.
That's correct. Anyway, check out this.
Guys, Robin Williams' sword from Hook, which is a thing I would love to own. $12,000 to $16,000 estimate. I would, yes.
Yeah, and anything else strike your fancy? I mean, there's so much. Wolverine's bone claws from the 2009 James Mangold Wolverine is in here. You know, like
that's pretty good. Tom Cruise's Maverick pilot helmet, $50,000 to $70,000. That's pretty high.
Yeah,
oh, I mean, I'm just pulling this up now.
Yeah, it's just so much good stuff here. Anyway,
Monkey Skull from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Helen Hunt's coveralls from the movie Twister.
The only thing that survived that movie.
Anyway, there's a lot of stuff here. If you're thinking of putting in a bid, /filmcast@gmail.com, let us know.
Yeah. A miniature of the Airwolf helicopter?
Yep.
From Airwolf?
/filmcast@gmail.com. Let us know if you're putting in a bid. So a
now
lot of
that theme
Terminator 2
song
stuff
is
in here
playing
too.
your head.
A lot of Terminator 2 stuff. That's pretty compelling. Okay.
A lot of alien stuff. Sorry, now you guys have got me looking through this.
More donations. Donald McCoy, Thomas Lane from Helsinki, Finland, and a donation on behalf of Beavis Bowen, I think it was. Dan Kleinberg donated, and also Bridget M. writes from Arlington, Massachusetts, my old stomping grounds. My husband, Paul, has terrible taste in podcasts that he's always pushing on me. That's the whole message. No, I'm just joking. She goes on, yours is the exception, a respite from the others. I was hoping you could wish him a happy 40th birthday. Given Dave's history of these shoutouts, perhaps a happy 41st as well, just to be safe. Talking about the fact that I sometimes am a little bit late to the trigger on these shoutouts. But if you want to donate to the /filmcast, you can always donate to us by going to paypal.me/filmcast. That's paypal.me/filmcast. Oh, sorry, one other donation. Someone named Tuck Frump donated. P.S. We all fall down. So take from that what you will. All right.
Jeff, write that script. Come on.
We all fall down.
Come on.
PayPal.me/filmcast. That's paypal.me/filmcast. Never donate if it in any way causes you any hardship whatsoever. But if you want to throw some cash our way, we'd really appreciate it. You can always start a subscription to the /filmcast as well by going to /film.com, click on the /filmcast tab, use the PayPal links on the side of the page. Before we get to our review, we're doing a new segment this week. Rather than put all the links to stuff that we're involved in at the end of the show, we're going to do weekly plugs. Every week we're going to plug one thing that we think you should check out. It could be something we made. It could be something else made. Let's do weekly plugs this week before we get to our review. So I'll start off with a weekly plug. On one of my other podcasts, Culturally Relevant, I did an interview with Mike Bithell, who created hit games such as Thomas Was Alone and John Wick Hex.
Yeah.
And I talked with him about his process writing Thomas Was Alone and making John Wick Hex, and it was a great conversation. Check it out at Culturally Relevant, wherever your podcasts can be downloaded. That's my weekly plug this week. What about you, Devindra?
I recently did an episode of the Engadget podcast about the big tech congressional antitrust hearing that happened last week. We dove into kind of everything going on there. Why specifically Apple, Google, and everybody was called up, and maybe Microsoft should have been there too. So I feel like we had a really good chat. Be sure to check out that episode with me and my co-host, Sherlyn Lowe.
That's the Engadget podcast. And yeah, I think I saw my boss testify at that thing. Also, Jeff Kanata, your weekly plug.
All of our bosses. It turns out the bosses of the world were there. It seems like every week I get a tweet at some point during the week of somebody going, wait a minute, We Have Concerns is back? Yes. We Have Concerns is back. The award-winning comedy science podcast that I do with Anthony Carboni. We did it for 4 years. Like I said, won awards. And then we stopped. Now it's back. We brought it back. And it's been going on for several months now, back in a new format, longer form. And this last week, we had a guest on, Dr. Kiki Sanford. I'm sure lots of people know Dr. Kiki. She's amazing, so brilliant. She is a neurophysiologist, a science communicator. She does This Week in Science. Brilliant, smart person. We have done over 600 episodes of our science podcast, and it's the first time we had a scientist on. So, new ground for us. It's a very funny, fun show. She is delightful, surprising no one, but also bringing some wonderful positivity and optimism, truly, to science and the science stories we're talking about. We talked about the CRISPR and what it means to be able to edit our DNA. And I highly recommend you checking out We Have Concerns. You can find it at wehaveconcerns.com. And that episode is episode 600 and something. I can't find the number. Anyway, it's the most recent episode.
All right, that's We Have Concerns. That's our weekly plugs for this week. Let's get to our review of Relic. Well, guys, I thought that went very well.
I did indeed.
Here we go. Back in. That was from the trailer for Relic, the new film out on video on demand. You can rent it right now, and it was directed by Natalie Erica James. It was her first film. And yeah, amazing accomplishment, in my opinion. I'm going to read the plot summary from IMDb. A daughter, mother, and grandmother are haunted by a manifestation of dementia that consumes their family home. Devendra Hardawar, your thoughts on Relic?
I absolutely love this movie. It is astonishingly creepy. I think a really well-told story of a family that's dealing with dementia, like they're dealing with an older family member having dementia, not quite understanding how to cope with that. But the way this movie expresses it is in like true horror movie fashion. And I don't think I feel like if this was done badly, it could be something like maybe more like the Shyamalan thing, The Visit, where an older person having an illness just seeming creepy for no reason could be exploitive. But I don't think that's it. Like, to me, this movie is just like it is a beautiful horror exploration of this theme. And we'll definitely talk about like the ending and everything. But as a horror movie, it worked well for me because I feel like it did a great job of setting up these really creepy moments, and just there aren't really set pieces, but every moment it feels like there is looming dread in this movie. And to me, that's my favorite kind of horror movie. That's like The Ring, that's The Shining, that's so many different things. Yeah, I loved it completely. And man, I want to see Emily Mortimer in more things too, especially like genre things like this, because she is fantastic as always.
Jefferson Kanata, your thoughts on Relic?
Well, Dave, I guess you could say my thoughts about Relic are best summed up in the form of a limerick. You guys are not going to like this.
Oh, boy.
Uh-oh.
At least Devendra's not. I thought 90 minutes was quick until I watched this flick. It's vague and it's dull, and I'm racking my skull to even get why it's titled Relic.
Wow.
Oh, man. Jeff. Jeff.
It's rough.
And the one thing you can't really complain about is the title, but okay, we'll talk about that in space.
I guess. Boy, this movie did not work for me at all. This is an 89-minute movie, I believe, and 60 of those minutes, nothing happens other than something that's mildly annoying, or there's mild strangeness. It's a sad thing that we I get it. It's sad that dementia is a horrible thing, and getting old is a horrible thing. It's a sad thing. A horror movie it is not until the last 20 minutes, and I found this completely lugubrious, dull. One of the things I love about the horror genre, I grew up reading Stephen King because, and this is like, 12, 13, 14 years old, loved that genre because it was supernatural stuff in present day, right? That's, there was a lot of Star Wars, which I loved. There was a lot of sci-fi things that I read as well. There was a lot of fantasy, but the only people that were really doing supernatural in modern times and in normal everyday life were horror writers. At least that was my experience. And so I got really into horror as a genre at that age because I loved that expression of fantasy, of sci-fi, of this magical storytelling that had rules and had an interesting lore and mythos about it. It was always such an interesting look at the supernatural. And that's what I like about horror movies. I'm not a horror fan per se these days. I don't seek out horror movies the way some of my friends do. But when I find great horror movies like The Orphanage, for example, or there's a number of great horror films that I love, or what's Jordan Peele's first movie?
Get Out. Yeah.
Get Out. Yeah. Great movies in the horror genre, I think. What I love about them is how they express their supernaturalness, right? And perhaps that's my bias. That's what I'm looking for when I hunker down for a horror movie, is like an interesting supernatural tale. And I understand that this movie is more of an allegory or a metaphor, but it just didn't hold together on the most fundamental level for me. I wasn't compelled by it. None of the rules mattered. It was just doing some stuff, and most of it wasn't particularly very interesting to me. And despite some, I think, lovely performances, and I don't know, I just at no point. I think the end, which we will talk about, is actually the most interesting moment of the entire movie, but it doesn't earn it. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't. If it was like this short story that had that ending, I think it would be more compelling, but it feels like a padded experience, even at 89 minutes. It just did not work at all for me. Sorry.
Well, I'm sorry you didn't like it, Jeff. I was a pretty big fan of this movie. I have to say, I really appreciated the texture of the movie. You know, when I think of movies that have texture, I'm referring kind of in a literal way to the production design and like the actual sets they used or the locations that they shot at. And it felt to me like very little CG was used in this movie. I mean, it feels like a pretty low budget movie, and so whether or not it's true, it feels like a lot of the effects are practical. And I love like how this world looks and how they're able to convey the ideas of death and decay. There's a lot of like black in the movie, like black spots everywhere, mildewy spots.
Black mold type thing.
Yeah, mold, and it's just like the human eye kind of recoils at that understanding that it's like unhealthy, or it's not. It's certainly not living and vibrant. What's there? Another movie that comes to mind when I think of like texture is Good Night, Mommy. I don't know if you guys have seen that horror film, but it's just where you really feel like the filmmaker is immersing you in the sights and sounds of this place. And I definitely got that from Relic. I definitely felt like I was in this extremely terrifying situation. And I appreciated the central metaphor of it too, right? Which is this idea that, you know, I've been thinking a lot about death recently, right? I mean,
I like when these conversations start. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I think of Caden Cotard from Synecdoche, New York, the Charlie Kaufman movie. And he says this line in the middle of the movie. He says, quote, I will be dying, and so will you, and so will everyone here. That's what I want to explore. We're all hurtling towards death, yet here we are for the moment, alive, each of us knowing we're going to die, each of us secretly believing we won't, end quote. And that's a really powerful thought about like how many of us go through life perceiving our lives in relation to other people, and we're all the kind of the center of our own story. And what I'm struck by when I watch a movie like Relic is a person, a human being, is the accumulation of experiences, of memories, of tendencies, of attitudes, moods, and what happens when all of those change, right? Like what happens when all those things are taken away from you? What happens when you get dementia or Alzheimer's and all those things that we used to know of as fundamentally you are gone? Like, are you the same person? Are you a different person? And I think that's what Relic gets at, this idea of when someone ages, they lose many of those things that we know them from, and to their loved ones, they feel like they're becoming a stranger. And there's something terrifying about that. I think that, like, you know, this movie is exploring that anxiety of like, you're living with this person, you've loved this person for decades, and then they become a stranger, not only a stranger that you don't know, but a stranger that could harm you because you don't know them, right?
It feels like death in slow motion in many ways too, right? Like the actual person you knew and loved is not there anymore. And I think I've seen some criticisms against this movie where the central metaphor is too blunt and too obvious. And sure, I get that, but I think the way, like you're saying, the texture of how it explores that, just the idea of living in this decaying house,
the house
and dealing the house.
The house is a character, you could say. No, I'm not going to say.
It's imagine that. But also like the way it infects this family dynamic between, 3 different generations. Like I found that all endlessly compelling.
I really love this movie. I think you should check it out. And I will say that like I watched it at night with a
Oh
good
yeah.
good sound system, decent TV, and that's a great way to enjoy it because I think like horror movies they rely on really good sound design and to scare you. So I'd recommend you try to get some isolation when you watch this movie.
Mm-hmm.
My
There
one
aren't really jump scares. I will say that. So don't worry about that. But there are great like creepy scares.
there are a
Like,
handful.
just
There are a
like
handful of jump scares.
that should not be in that frame right now. But it's all happening very slowly. But to me, that is scarier than a jump scare.
My one complaint about this movie is that I didn't really buy the relationship between Emily Mortimer's character Kay and her daughter Sam, played by Bella Heathcote. I think part of it is a casting situation. I believe the age difference between those two people is 16 years, and to me, I for quite a while I thought they were sisters, right? Like because they're not that far apart in age, and also they don't it didn't really strike me as a mother-daughter relationship, and I maybe that's the point is that like oh they have such an atypical relationship because they treat each other like they're both kind of on the same level, but
Or she could have had her very young or something like. But
yeah,
yeah,
it's
I hear you.
but I didn't get any of that in the text of the movie. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
so if you're gonna make a point with that, I feel like they didn't succeed, and then as a result, we're left with two characters who look like pretty similar in age, who are supposed to be mother daughter. I understand what the movie's trying to do in terms of conveying like generational trauma from what's happening, but it didn't really work for me. That said, completely randomly, I watch GQ's YouTube channel, and they have this thing where they have like actors and directors go on the channel or interesting people and like here's me talking about the various roles of my career. And they had Russell Crowe do it recently, and these are all very fascinating, and I'd recommend you watch them all. But it's Russell Crowe is talking about how he got the role for The Insider. He was 30 something years old. He was playing a dude in his 50s.
Yep.
And it's like, and I thought he did a great job in that movie. But when Michael Mann met him to talk about it, Russell Crowe said to Michael Mann, like, I don't know why you're talking to me. I'm way too young for this role. And Michael Mann's like, I don't care how old you are. Like, I see something in you that like you can bring this character alive, you make this character alive. And so at the same time as I'm saying, like, I didn't really buy the mother-daughter relationship and part of that is age difference. I don't want to say that like it's impossible to make that happen, even if you have people who aren't the perfect ages for your characters.
Right. Right.
I just don't know that it succeeded in this particular case. So,
I mean, I bought it in as much as like it was just very very strained, and I was trying to figure out like what happened between them. Like she seems like the young daughter who doesn't quite live up to her mom's expectations, I guess, or who is kind of screwing up, and her mom is kind of a little more orderly. Like that's what I was deconstructing. So that it worked for me on that level, and seeing how they tried to come together to take care of the grandmother, like that was the union, and it did kind of bring them together in a way. But we'll talk about that ending.
There's so little in of the mother daughter. It felt like they could have been sisters, and I don't know that the movie would have been impacted that much,
Right.
other than the metaphor that the movie's trying to get across, which is about generational trauma. Anyway, let's get to spoilers for Relic starting right now. Okay, so spoilers for Relic. Let's talk about the ending. I actually wasn't a huge fan of the ending. I thought it kind of went on for a little bit because
it shifts. Yeah,
they're like, oh, now we're just going full blown supernatural. Like they're trapped in this weird ass house. In a maze, basically.
It was a creepy like thing where like, oh man, guys, I just moved into a house that is larger than anywhere I've ever lived, and there are rooms here. There are nooks where I don't know where they go. Like there's right next to my office, there is like this long room that I think is leading to like some of the water supply or something. And there's like an Ethernet cable that's sitting through my wall that's trailed through that room. But the area to navigate that is about like 1 foot wide. So for me to like get to the other end of this like corridor, I'd have to like really squeeze through a lot of stuff. I don't know what's there. Who knows what's there? There's stuff in this attic. I don't know. Like when it gets to that point where it's just like, oh man, that room shouldn't be there. Why does this exist? This house is not up to code, clearly. uh, that to me felt creepy on a certain level. But then then it becomes like, oh, okay, we are going full swing into this is how this movie's representing the supernatural, type of it. It's actually like changing the physical environment.
Yeah.
And by the end, like it is I think the whole ending scene, it's straight up like it reminded me a lot of Annihilation, of a very like visually poetic way of exploring what's actually happening, because they go straight from being chased by the grandmother to, okay, they, I guess, hurt her a lot, and Emily Mortimer's character just can't leave her alone. And I think that whole final sequence it does come out of nowhere a little bit, but I think it is ultimately moving in terms of what it's representing. Like that whole aspect of her peeling off her mother's skin to reveal somebody else entirely and loving her anyway. Like that's beautiful.
Yeah. So Natalie Arca James gave an interview to Inverse where she talks about the ending, and she says that the peeling of Edna's skin is a metaphor for Kay's acceptance of her mother in the grips of late-stage Alzheimer's. Quote from James: "The peeling away of the skin is a real acceptance of how much she's changed. In a sense, she's helping to ease her load. What I think is the only thing that's scary in this film is the actual transformation and the grief and violence that comes from that. In her final form, she's very fragile and very vulnerable. That reflects how a lot of us are at the end of our lives. It's harrowing to see people who have kind of wasted away and are close to death. In helping Edna transform, it is a full embracing of the fact that it's still her mother." End quote. Jeff, did the ending do anything for you, or were you just like you were off the movie train at that point?
No, I said the ending was the only part of the movie I liked.
When she's like peeling off the skin, right?
Yeah, I thought everything after I'm gonna go back in. I thought the sort of chase through the house, through the out the chimney wall thing. I just none of that I found. I was never. Never scared by this movie. But I loved everything after she goes back in because it is a beautiful.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. Yeah.
That was just like 5 minutes though. So you love 5 minutes of this movie.
I love 5 minutes of the '89. Yeah.
Yeah.
The expression. I mean, it is heart wrenching. This thing that anybody that is close to their parents is likely to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Not Alzheimer's in particular, but just the idea of watching them die, to be quite frank, and that the tenderness with which she lays down and holds her mother. I mean, that is something that is hard for me to even talk about as a metaphor, because the idea of having to do that with my own parents at some point is just so heart-wrenching, and it's a beautiful moment. It is beautifully shot. It is exquisite, and this like husk, this thing that her mother is, she's still able to sort of hold it and be close to it and know that there was some connection to something that she was. I found very moving, very moving. I didn't think we needed to go through half the stuff that happens in the movie to get there. I didn't think that all of the things that we experience actually make that moment any better or more interesting. I just felt like the movie is grinding its wheels until that moment. I felt like that 5 minutes is really says everything this movie wants to say and doesn't need any of the setup to get there. It's just, I don't know. I felt the movie felt padded, even at a short runtime, because there's so little that matters up until
I gotta disagree there, Jeff, because this movie's ending on acceptance, but there are stages that lead to acceptance, and to me, like even the running through the house and them like treating her as like a monster, where she is, she's a fragile older woman. Like, I'm not sure how she all of a sudden had like semi super strength or something, but metaphorically what it is like, them being afraid of what she's turning into, and the grandmother lashing out, which can happen with somebody who's confused, an older person who's confused and doesn't know what to do, and they may be a danger to somebody and they don't quite know it. It could be when they're driving. It could just be like the way they react to somebody who walks into their room and they don't recognize their granddaughter anymore, or their own daughter. It's like, it's all metaphorical. And it's not even like particularly subtle about it, because like there is a moment of rage, raging against like what she's actually feeling. There are the moments of them trying to like really come to terms with what the grandmother is dealing with, and the whole chase sequence I found kind of fascinating too, because it does also end in like a sort of a rebirth sequence. Like they're going through that wall, of their family house. Like they are reemerging in a different way than they were before.
And they come through where somebody would usually hang a family portrait.
They're coming through the hearth of the home.
Yeah.
Like this. The imagery in this movie is so effective, which is why, it certainly lingers on certain shots. Like certain things take time. Even that whole opening sequence of following, the flooded bathtub, which again, right now, that would be a horror story to me. Like it is creepy in a way and visually like intriguing in a way. Like that's why this movie works for me. But I wouldn't say it's empty. It's just like the ideas it's exploring. Like, okay, like maybe you don't like you're not into the way it's exploring, a family wrestling through dementia. I feel that, but I don't think it's empty. Not at all.
Fair enough.
One thing I want to point out about the ending is something that I was reminded of by Vincenzo Natali, who's been a guest a couple of times on the Slash Filmcast.
Mm-hmm.
He made a movie called Splice, a horror film, which, by the way, has been tearing its way up Netflix charts recently.
Gotta love it.
It's so great. That movie was a complete bomb when it came out, box office wise.
Not with us, baby.
Not with us. I was a huge fan of that movie, but the American public did not appreciate it. Then, like a decade later, it's on Netflix and millions of people watch it. Like, who can predict
Vindication for Vincenzo.
I hope he feels it. Because we love him here on the podcast. But anyway, he was saying how when he was making Splice, and there was a character in Splice called Dren, very cool creature effects, and she has these kind of weird feet, like these weird legs. And he was saying how in horror films, it's very easy to be additive. It's very hard to be subtractive. Like you can add blood, you can add on like a thing growing out of your face or whatever. It's hard to take away something. And I was thinking of that when Emily Mortimer's character was like peeling off the layers of skin from her mom, and she still recognizably looks like her mom's face. I was like, how did they? Robin Nevin, I believe, is the actress who plays her. It's like, how did they do this? Like, did they have like a mini? Like, was it like animatronic or was it CG?
It looks like robotic.
Yeah, it looked like robotic. It's just like, wow, this is like a fairly low budget movie. But they were able to like get an animatronic Robin Nevin head. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that effect was really
because it looks
well
like
done.
It looks like her. It looks like a shrunken down version of her.
Mhm.
And it's just like, how did they? Yeah. Anyway, it's really impressive, and just wanted to call that out. But yeah, the ending part it did drag on a little bit for me. It's like, okay, like this is not the most interesting part of the movie, right? Where she's like in the movie, she's like, oh my gosh, all the walls and the doors are everywhere. It's like
the daughter is stuck in the house for like 15 minutes.
She's stuck in the house for like 15. It's like, I don't care about any of this. Like it's the everything else. Like when she's in the closet and like the plastic bag starts breathing. I thought that was incredible. There's this moment actually that I really appreciated, right, where Emily Mortimer's character calls out to her mom, and the mom looks like she's walking away from her, but then it reveals that she's actually facing her. Do you guys know?
Yes.
The hair in the
I was like,
the face looks like it's the back of the head. Yeah.
Pretty effective way to scare people, like to weird people out, like very low budget. You know what I'm saying?
Very low budget. Also, in that scene, there is like a distinctive black shadow, like right behind Emily Mortimer's character, which you could just miss.
Oh yeah, no, I saw it. I'm like, what is
like
going on there?
Like, what is? I love that. I love that in horror movie. Like to me, that get under your skin kind of creepiness is
and
so
it's
good.
never revealed. It's never explained what that is, right? Yeah. And of course, the very last shot is we find out that Emily Mortimer's character also has the bruises, right? She will also succumb in the same way. And all three of them laying down there. It's like this cycle. We're seeing the cycle of life. That is why that shot is why this movie had a grandmother, a mother, and daughter, right? That shot where you have like it's like three generations, each in different stages of their life, in different stages of this affliction that they're all, or at least two of them, are going to be cursed with. And it was very effective. It's a beautiful, beautiful shot, and very haunting. So, any other thoughts, or shall we wrap it up there?
I'm good.
All right, that's our thoughts on Relic. Overall, we liked it, and even Jeff, who didn't like it, appreciated the ending. So maybe check it out just for the ending. Anyway, that's going to bring us to the end of this review on the Slash Filmcast. Stay tuned to hear what we'll be discussing next week. In the meantime, find more episodes of this podcast at slashfilmcast.com. Email us at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. This episode's theme song comes to you from adamwarrock.com. Our spoiler bumper comes from YouTuber Kyle Hillinger. Check out his YouTube channel. And this episode was edited by Beatty Zhang. Next week, we are going to be discussing She Dies Tomorrow, new movie by Amy Seimetz, right? She Dies Tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing, guys, is like there was that movie that was released that was made on Zoom or something, right?
Yes, it does look good. Host. Yeah.
Maybe we should review that in a future week, but I do think we should do She Dies Tomorrow next week. Which I think has very similar themes to Relic, by the way. But let's give it a shot, shall we? She Dies Tomorrow, I think, will be out on video on demand by next week. And if not, we'll do the Zoom movie as a backup. But that's going to be the plan.
Isn't that only on Shudder? The host
Host is only on Shudder. So
yeah, I guess
it is a good service and worth trying out for a little bit, I'd say.
All right. Well, that's it for the Slash Filmcast. Until next week, keep wearing a mask, keep staying safe, staying healthy, and being considerate of those around you. We'll see you later.